Abortion is one of those divisive topics that keeps popping up, and recently Alabama and Texas have proposed bills to criminalize abortion as homicide. Personally, this is my take on the issue. First off, pro-lifers who object to the idea often do so under the guise of protecting the sanctity of life. First of all, I don't think anything should be considered sacred, as things that are sacred become above reproach. But given the rarity and utility of life itself, I might go as far as to consider it important, or worthy of protection, but let's keep sanctity out of it. Pro-lifers actually believed life was sacred, they should be out there making sure that nobody steps on ants and escorting spiders outside safely. But that's not what they fucking do, because it's only human life that's sacred to them. Wow, how convenient is that? The species you belong to happens to be the only one that's important? Funny how that worked out in your favor, huh? So let's just play along and grant the premise that a human life is somehow more important than a spider. We then come to two new questions. What qualifies as a human life, and what aspect of it is important? It's easy to put a blanket moral absolutism over human life, but really the important part of a life is experience and immediate potential. This is why some vegetarians will eat clams and oysters and shit. They allegedly have no sentience and are the cognitive equivalent to vegetables. It is also why most people are okay with euthanasia in cases where a person is terminal and in constant agony. The quality of experience is a major factor in how we value life. It takes 6 months of gestation before a fetus has the potential to begin experiencing anything. So prior to that, you're dealing with cells in production. Nobody considers it murder when you scratch off some skin cells or go out for a night of binge drinking. So a clump of cells don't qualify as a person. Even if it reaches the stages of heartbeat, pumping a liquid doesn't make a creature any more sentient. Pro-lifers like to focus on the potential. And yes, fetus is a potential human. An egg, milk, and flour is a potential pancake. But if you order a pancake and I bring you a bowl of milky eggs and flour, you would agree that it's not the same fucking thing. It's a romanticized idea that we all succumb to on some level as we ponder the things that could have been. And I previously specified immediate potential because long-term potential is purely speculative. Every human being has the potential to be anything, but that's irrelevant to how things are actually playing out. So the immediate potential of a zygote is simply to multiply cells. To speculate any further is to grieve over an imaginary future. Sure, maybe he would have grown up to be the kid that cures cancer, but he might have grown up to be the next Hitler too. I always thought that was a stupid fucking argument as well, because it's not like the cure for cancer is locked in any one person's mind. If little Jimmy gets aborted, the cure is going to be discovered by the next person. It's not just lost forever. But the potential doesn't look good for an unwanted child who is likely going to end up a ward of the state or in a neglectful and abusive household. Not saying that orphans and latchkey kids can't grow up to have fulfilling lives, but they're starting with a massive disadvantage. There's so many that end up in situations where their entire life is just abuse and then death from neglect. Was that a life worth living? Why not hedge the bet against that sort of life experience by allowing more planned children and not forcing more unplanned children? And I get that there is some value in the idea of making human life sacred because it helps deter rationalizations for things like genocide or eugenics, but we have to make rational determinations based on individual cases rather than blanket dogma. Now there's also the problem of autonomy. Should the woman not have any choice about her own fucking body? How does society at large get the right to force you to host a living thing inside yourself? And why does the rights of a potential human suddenly supersede the rights of an actual living, breathing adult woman? Because of an appeal to emotion by conflating a fetus with a baby. These are pictures of various animals in embryonic stage, and as you can see, they start out almost indistinguishable. At early stages, we're all proto-creatures in development. The pro-life crowd, which is an amusing misnomer given that they could care less about human life once you're out of the womb, puts all sorts of propaganda to conflate a fetus with a baby. This is a fetus, and this is a baby. Pretty clear distinction if you ask me. But let me run a little scenario by you to drive the point home. Let's say you're in a burning hospital, and in one room there's 1,000 viable fetuses and embryos frozen in a case. In another room, there's one living, breathing infant baby. There's only time to go into one room and save the occupants. Which one do you choose? Obviously the one with the actual baby in it, because you know there's a fucking difference. And see, the root of the problem is that there's this religious element to childbirth and the sanctity of life that is so adherent to dogma that people have a hard time rationalizing what makes a life sacred in the first place. For them, it just is because it is. All babies are born with inexplicable soul magic, and that makes them special. It is a gift from God, and you're expected to live through it, no matter how shitty it might end up being. But if you remove the supernatural religious element, the argument boils down to the value of the potential of a fetus. Because it has the chance to grow up to be a person, do we owe it all the rights and freedoms of an actual person? If the government can force you to take care of your kids once they're born, do they not also have the authority to force you to care for them in utero? Considering that at the point in which most abortions occur is closer to being an oyster than a baby, I'd say that the right of a woman to choose is more important. It is an unfortunate circumstance, but we can't be sacrificing the rights of actual people for potential people. And reducing the number of unwanted children in the world increases the overall well-being of the children that are already here. And the only ethical window of time in which to stop the process is before a baby is born and has the thoughts and feelings and experiences of a person. The potential is just a spook of the mind. In order for there to be a loss, there first has to be something to lose. And if the anti-abortion legislation passes in these southern states, a woman can get significantly more jail time for aborting her rape baby than the man who raped her.